I was there. I witnessed it. And for the past 12 years, I have shared it with no one. Not my wife, not my children, not even my best friends from the military. And that was the point. They did not give us any options. But I am through being scared. This is how it occurred at Langley Air Force Base on March 23, 2012. And the thing I witnessed hovering 30 feet above me was not ours. And the manner in which it was expunged from all official records reflects their absolute knowledge of what it was. I am Daniel Hartley, 8 years in the United States Air Force as a geospatial intelligence analyst, 8 long years at Langley Air Force Base in the state of Virginia. The night shift in Building 314. We worked satellite photos and drone footage from around the globe. It was classified. It was big time. The kind of mission you sign your soul away for in non-disclosure forms before they show you to your desk. But nothing in those NDAs had prepared me for what I was to observe one cold March night in 2012. It was 2:15 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I just checked my watch, calculating how many hours until my shift ended at 0600. The overnight rotation was brutal. 12 hours staring at screens in a windowless room, tracking insurgent movements in Afghanistan, analyzing Iranian nuclear facilities, mapping Chinese naval exercises. Your eyes burn, your back aches, and around 0200, the caffeine stops working and you're running on fumes and discipline. I stepped outside for a cigarette break. Regulations said we had to smoke at least 50 feet from the building entrance, so I walked to the designated area near the parking lot. The air was crisp, probably around 40 degrees, with that particular Virginia dampness that goes right through your jacket. The base was quiet. Most personnel were either asleep or locked in their own classified spaces, doing work they couldn't talk about even to each other. I lit my cigarette and looked up at the sky. Force of habit. When you spend your days analyzing imagery from above, you develop a weird relationship with the sky. You start seeing it differently. Understanding the geometries, the angles, what things look like from 20,000 feet versus 200. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was an aircraft banking toward the runway. Langley hosts the first fighter wing. F-22s operate out of here. Seeing military aircraft at odd hours was normal, but this thing wasn't moving like any aircraft I'd ever seen. It was triangular. Perfectly triangular. About the size of a small house, maybe 40 feet per side. And it was just hovering. Completely stationary, maybe 300 feet up, directly over the maintenance complex on the east side of the base. I stood there, cigarette burning down between my fingers, watching this thing. It had 3 lights, one at each corner. Not blinking navigation lights like you'd see on a plane. These were steady, pulsing with this deep red glow that seemed to breathe. And there was no sound. Nothing. No engine noise, no rotor wash, no jet whine. Complete silence. My training kicked in. I'm an intelligence analyst. I observe, I document, I assess. I looked for identifying features. The craft's surface appeared dark, almost black, but with this weird quality like it was absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The edges were sharp, geometric, impossibly precise. And those lights, they pulsed in a pattern. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. Like a heartbeat. I watched for maybe 30 seconds, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Then, the craft moved. It didn't bank or turn like a conventional aircraft. It simply shifted. One moment it was over the maintenance complex. The next moment, it was directly above me. No transition, no visible movement. It was there. Then, it was here. 30 feet above my head. I could see details now. The underside had this pattern, like panels or sections, fitted together with seams so thin you could barely see them. And in the center, where the three sides met, there was this circular depression, maybe 6 feet across. It was glowing. Not like the corner lights, but with this pale blue luminescence that made my skin crawl. The temperature dropped. Dropped. I went from being mildly cold to feeling like I'd stepped into a freezer. My breath came out in thick clouds. I could see condensation forming on my jacket. And then I felt it. It's hard to describe. It was like pressure, but not physical pressure. It was in my head. A vibration, a frequency. Something that made my teeth ache and my eyes water. I could feel it in my bones, this deep thrumming that seemed to resonate with my own body. It wasn't painful exactly. It was intrusive, invasive, like something was scanning me, reading me, cataloging every cell in my body. My cigarette fell from my hand. The craft hovered there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared above me, it shot straight up, not like a rocket, not like a jet. It just ascended, vertically, impossibly fast. One moment it was there, the next moment it was a dot of light streaking toward the cloud cover. Then it was gone. I stood there, shaking. Not from the cold, though I was freezing, from the realization of what I'd just witnessed. In my 8 years as an intelligence specialist, I'd seen classified aircraft. I'd analyzed imagery of every military platform the United States operates. I knew what our technology looked like, what our experimental craft could do. That wasn't ours. I looked around the parking lot. Empty. No one else had been outside. No one else had seen it. The thought hit me like a punch. I'm the only witness. Just me and whatever that thing was. I went back inside, my mind racing. Should I report this? To who? How do you file a report about something that officially doesn't exist? I sat at my desk, staring at my screens, but I couldn't focus. The satellite imagery of Afghanistan blurred. All I could see was that triangle, those lights, that impossible movement. Around 0300, my supervisor, Master Sergeant Phillips, came by. "Hartley, you okay? You look like you saw a ghost." I almost told him, almost, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the ND as I'd signed. Maybe it was the instinct that telling the truth about this would only cause problems. So I said, "Long night, Sergeant. Too much coffee." He nodded and moved on. I finished my shift on autopilot. When 0600 rolled around, I clocked out and drove home. I didn't tell my wife. I went to sleep and tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. Stress, fatigue, too many hours staring at classified imagery. My mind playing tricks, but I knew what I'd seen. Before I continue, I need to pause and acknowledge something. There are thousands of stories like mine out there. Thousands of service members who've seen things they can't explain, experienced encounters they're not allowed to discuss. If my story resonates with you, if you've served or you know someone who has, please subscribe to this channel. We're building a community where these stories can finally be told. Daily uploads honoring military service and the truth that comes with it. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Airman First Class Hartley? The voice was calm, professional, completely neutral. Yes? This is Captain Morrison from Base Security. We need you to come in for a debriefing. Today, 0900 hours, Building 721. What's this about? The incident last night, your smoke break. We'll discuss it when you arrive. He hung up before I could ask how he knew about my smoke break. Building 721 wasn't part of my normal work area. It was in the restricted zone, The part of Langley where you needed special clearances even if you already had a top-secret classification. I'd never been inside. At 0845, I showed up at the entrance. 2 Air Force Security Forces airmen checked my ID, made a phone call, then escorted me through 3 separate security checkpoints. Each one required biometric scans. Each one took my phone, my wallet, anything electronic. They brought me to a windowless conference room, bare walls, metal table, 3 chairs, and 1 man waiting for me. Captain Morrison looked like he'd stepped out of a recruiting poster. Square jaw, crisp uniform, the kind of bearing that said, "Career Military." He gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Airman Hartley." I sat. He placed a folder on the table between us. It had my name on it. My full personnel file, I assumed. But it was thicker than it should have been. "What you saw last night," he said, not even bothering with pleasantries. "Tell me everything." So I did. I walked him through the entire encounter, the triangle, the lights, the movement, that feeling of being scanned. I left nothing out. When I finished, he sat there for a long moment, just looking at me. "That's quite a story," he said. "It's not a story. It's what happened." He opened the folder. Inside were photographs, night vision images of the base, thermal scans, radar plots. And there, clear as day, was my triangular craft. Multiple images, multiple angles, time-stamped from 0215 to 0218 on March 23rd. "We have confirmation," Morrison said. 5 different sensor systems tracked the object, base radar, FLIR cameras, 2 satellites that happened to be overhead, and 1 very confused tower controller who thought his equipment was malfunctioning. So I'm not crazy. No, Airman Hartley, you're not crazy. You're a witness to a UAP event, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. We get them here about 3 or 4 times a year. Usually they stay high, stay distant. This one came down to say hello, made you special. The way he said special made my skin crawl. "What was it?" I asked. "Above your pay grade. Above mine, if I'm honest. What I can tell you is this. You're going to sign some new paperwork today. Enhanced NDAs. You will not discuss this incident with anyone. Not your wife, not your parents, not your drinking buddies. The penalties for violation include court-martial, imprisonment, and forfeiture of all veterans' benefits. Am I clear?" "Crystal clear." "Good. Because there's a second part. You're being transferred, effective immediately. Your work at Building 314 is done. Your new assignment will be less sensitive." "You're punishing me for seeing something you tracked on 5 different sensor systems?" Morrison's expression didn't change. "We're protecting you, and protecting the security protocols that keep this base operational. The people you were working with don't need to know what you saw. Questions lead to speculation. Speculation leads to compromise. We can't have that." They transferred me to Andrews Air Force Base within the week. Different command, different mission, different clearance level. My wife thought it was strange, but accepted the official story. New opportunities, better career path. She didn't know I'd been silenced. For the next 6 years, I kept my mouth shut. I did my job, earned my promotions, served honorably. I separated from the Air Force in 2018 with an honorable discharge and all my benefits intact. I started a civilian life, got a job as a defense contractor doing satellite analysis. The same work, essentially, but with better pay and no uniforms. But I never forgot that night. In 2023, things started changing. The Pentagon released UAP videos. Congressional hearings started happening. Pilots were coming forward, talking about encounters with craft that moved in impossible ways. The Nimitz incident, the Roosevelt encounters, the Go Fast video. Suddenly, the things I'd been forced to keep secret were being discussed in open session on C-SPAN. I started following the developments. I watched former intelligence officials testify about retrieval programs, reverse engineering, non-human technology. I saw the credibility these witnesses were given. and I realized maybe it's time to tell my story. But I hesitated. Those NDAs were still in effect. The threats Morrison made were still real. I had a family to protect, a career to maintain. Speaking out could cost me everything. Then, in September 2025, I saw the news about Air Force veteran Dylan Borland. He'd been a geospatial intelligence specialist at Langley, just like me. He reported a UAP sighting in 2012, just like me. And he faced retaliation for it. Lost his clearance, lost job opportunities, was blacklisted from federal intelligence work. His story was my story. Almost exactly. Except he'd spoken up sooner and paid the price. I reached out to him through social media. We talked. He confirmed everything I'd experienced, the triangular craft, the hovering, the impossible movements, the immediate response from security. He'd seen it on a different night, a different month, but the same type of encounter. They're still threatening me, he told me over the phone, still making my life hell. But you know what? I don't care anymore. This story needs to be told. These things are real. The cover-up is real, and people need to know. His courage gave me strength. But what I didn't know then was that my sighting was just one piece of a much larger pattern. A pattern the military had been tracking for decades. I started digging. As a defense contractor, I still had access to certain databases, certain networks. I started looking for pattern matches, UAP sightings near military installations, triangular craft specifically. What I found shocked me. Langley Air Force Base had documented 47 separate UAP incidents between 1989 and 2024. 47. And that's just the ones that made it into classified reports. Triangular craft accounted for 18 of those incidents. All of them shared similar characteristics: silent movement, sharp geometric edges, red pulsing lights at the corners, impossible acceleration. But here's what really got my attention. Every single person who officially reported these sightings faced the same retaliation I did. Transfers, demotions, security clearance reviews, blacklisting. The pattern was unmistakable. The military wasn't just covering up UAP encounters. They were actively punishing witnesses. I found reports from airmen at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, F-16 pilots from Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, maintenance crews from Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. All triangular craft, all similar encounters, all silenced. One report particularly caught my attention. From 1991, an Air Force security policeman at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota had encountered a triangular craft hovering over a Minuteman III missile silo. The craft had remained stationary for 14 minutes before ascending vertically at what radar clocked as 12,000 miles per hour. The security policeman reported feeling the same pressure, the same scanning sensation I'd experienced. His name was redacted from the report, but his fate wasn't. Subject reassigned to administrative duties, clearance downgraded, recommend no further access to sensitive sites. They destroyed his career for telling the truth. I kept digging. I found a pattern of triangular UAP sightings going back to the 1950s. The Belgium UFO wave of 1989 to 1991 involved hundreds of witnesses reporting large triangular craft. The British Ministry of Defense had documented similar sightings over RAF bases throughout the 70s and 80s. Even civilian sightings in Phoenix, Arizona in 1997, the famous Phoenix Lights, matched the profile. Whatever these things were, they'd been operating in our airspace for at least 70 years, and the military had been tracking them, documenting them, and silencing anyone who talked. In my case, the silencing worked. For 12 years, I kept quiet. I honored those NDAs, feared those threats, protected my career and my family. But watching other veterans come forward, watching them sacrifice everything to tell their truth, I realized something important. Silence is complicity. By staying quiet, I was helping maintain a cover-up that served no one except whatever bureaucracy had decided the American people can't handle the truth. The same American people who fund the military, who send their children to serve, who trust the government to be honest about threats to national security. These craft are real. They're operating in restricted airspace over military installations. They're demonstrating technology that defies our understanding of physics. And we're being told it's classified, it's above our pay grade, it's need to know. Well, I think the American people need to know. Let me tell you what happened in the months after my transfer from Langley. I was at Andrews Air Force Base, working a desk job in logistics, paperwork, supply chains, nothing classified, nothing exciting. They'd effectively ended my intelligence career. But I was still on active duty, still wearing the uniform, still bound by all those rules and regulations. 3 months after my transfer, I got called into my new commander's office. Lieutenant Colonel Harris, older guy, close to retirement, the kind of officer who'd seen enough to know when something didn't smell right. "Sit down, Hartley," he said. "I've been reading your file. Impressive record. Top marks in tech school, multiple commendations from your time at Langley, recommendations for early promotion. Then suddenly you're here, pushing paper in my logistics shop. What happened?" I gave him the official story. "Needed a change, sir. Different career path." He looked at me like I'd just told him the sun was cold. "Bullshit! Nobody volunteers out of intelligence work at Langley to do supply requisitions at Andrews. You got transferred as punishment. What did you do?" I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to tell him everything, but those NDAs hung over me like a sword. "Can't discuss it, sir. Classified matters?" He nodded slowly. I figured as much. "Look, Hartley, I don't know what you saw or what you did, but I know talent when I see it. You're wasted in logistics. I'm going to put in for your reassignment to intelligence work here. We need good analysts." "With respect, sir, that won't go through. My clearance is complicated. Everything's complicated in this Air Force. Let me worry about the paperwork." He tried. He really did. But every request he submitted came back denied. No explanation, just denied. After the 4th attempt, he called me back into his office. "Someone really doesn't want you doing intelligence work," he said. "Someone with enough juice to block every request I make. You want to tell me what you stepped in?" "Can't, sir. Can't or won't. Both." He sighed. "All right. But whatever it is, Hartley, it's following you. Watch your back." He was right. It was following me. 6 months after my transfer, I applied for a position with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Civilian position, good pay, using my skills. I was perfect for the job. The recruiter practically promised me the position. Then my background check came back, and suddenly the job wasn't available anymore. "Budget constraints," they said. I tried the National Reconnaissance Office, same result. Defense Intelligence Agency, CIA. Even private contractors working on classified projects, every single one, same pattern. Initial interest, background check, then sudden withdrawal. I'd been blacklisted, not officially. There was no letter, no document saying Daniel Hartley is banned from intelligence work. But the effect was the same. Someone, somewhere, had flagged my file. And every time my name came up for a position requiring security clearance, that flag triggered a rejection. It wasn't until years later, after I'd separated from the Air Force and started working in the civilian sector on unclassified projects, that I understood the full scope of what they'd done. They'd effectively erased my intelligence career. All those years of training, all that expertise, all those capabilities rendered worthless. Because I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to see, even though I'd kept my mouth shut about it, even though I'd honored every NDA they'd shoved in front of me. The retaliation wasn't about protecting national security, it was about protecting the cover-up. In 2023, After the Pentagon released its UAP videos and Congress started holding hearings, I watched with bitter amusement as officials testified about the lack of systematic tracking, the absence of formal reporting channels, the stigma that prevented pilots and personnel from coming forward. We need to create an environment where our service members feel comfortable reporting these encounters, one admiral testified. I almost threw my phone at the TV. They'd had a reporting environment. People reported. They tracked. They documented. They cataloged. They just punished everyone who did it. The same year, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, was established to investigate UAP sightings. They put out a call for witnesses, promising protection, promising serious investigation. Some veterans came forward. Dylan Borland was one of them. He submitted his report about the Langley Triangle. Detailed account, supported by his records, his timeline, everything documented. ARO investigated, and according to Borland, they dismissed his entire account. Insufficient evidence to substantiate claims of anomalous activity, their assessment said. This from an office that supposedly had access to all the sensor data I knew existed, the radar tracks, the thermal imagery, the satellite confirmation. They had the evidence. They chose to ignore it. That's when I understood. AARO wasn't about disclosure. It was about controlled management of the narrative. Give people a place to report so they feel heard, then carefully filter what gets acknowledged publicly. Make the problem look smaller, more manageable, less significant than it really is. The cover-up had evolved. It wasn't crude anymore, wasn't threatening people into silence. It was sophisticated. It was bureaucratic. It was plausible deniability wrapped in official investigations. But some of us remember when it was cruder. When it was threats and transfers and destroyed careers. When it was Captain Morrison in that windowless room telling me exactly what would happen if I talked. What I'm about to tell you goes beyond my personal experience. It connects to something much bigger. In January 2026, just days from when I'm recording this, a major UAP press conference was announced at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Filmmaker James Fox, who's been investigating this phenomenon for decades, is bringing together first-hand witnesses, government officials, and insiders to present new evidence about UAP encounters and alleged crash retrieval programs. The timing is significant. After years of slow, controlled disclosure, a video here, a hearing there, carefully managed statements, suddenly there's momentum, real momentum. Witnesses are finding their voices. Officials are going on record. The wall of silence is cracking. I decided I needed to add my voice before that conference, not because my story is unique, it's not. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of service members who've had similar encounters, but because each voice adds weight, each testimony adds credibility, each witness makes it harder for the cover-up to maintain itself. The Langley Triangle I saw in 2012 was not experimental American technology. I know what our black projects look like. I spent years analyzing imagery of classified platforms. This wasn't ours. The movement alone, instant acceleration, 90-degree turns without banking, complete silence, violated every principle of conventional aerospace engineering. The craft demonstrated capabilities that, 12 years later, we still don't have. We have hypersonic missiles that can maneuver at high speeds. We have drones that can hover. We have stealth technology that reduces radar signature. But we don't have anything that combines all these capabilities in one silent, gravity-defying package. And yet, when confronted with this reality, the official response has been, "Nothing to see here. Move along. Trust us, it's classified." Or, alternatively, "It's not real. It's misidentification. It's instrument error. The sensor data doesn't lie." 5 different systems tracked that craft. Multiple trained observers witnessed it. The physics of what happened that night are documented, quantified, undeniable. So why the cover-up? I've thought about this a lot over the years. Why would the military hide the existence of craft that clearly represent either a significant technological leap by an adversary or something even more profound? What's the strategic benefit of keeping this secret? Some argue it's about preventing panic. The public can't handle the truth that we share our skies with intelligently controlled craft of unknown origin. I don't buy that. The American public has handled nuclear weapons, global pandemics, terrorist attacks. We're remarkably resilient. And polling consistently shows that a majority of Americans already believe UAPs are real. Some argue it's about maintaining strategic advantage. If these are reverse-engineered alien craft, revealing that would show our hand to adversaries. Maybe. But again, why hide the fact that unknown craft are penetrating our most secure airspace? Wouldn't that be something the public and Congress need to know? The more I study the history of this cover-up, the more I think it's something simpler. Institutional inertia. The cover-up has been going on so long, through so many administrations, involving so many agencies, that the machinery of secrecy has become self-perpetuating. People maintain it because it's always been maintained. Files stay classified because they've always been classified. Witnesses get silenced because that's the protocol. Nobody wants to be the one to admit that the government has been lying about this for 70 years. Nobody wants to face the legal, political, and social consequences of that admission. So the lie continues, reinforced by bureaucracy, protected by classification, maintained by career officers who value their pensions more than the truth. But the truth has a way of surfacing. In the years since my encounter, I've connected with dozens of other witnesses, people who saw the same triangular craft, people who experienced the same retaliation, people who've lived with the same burden of enforced silence. There's a community of us now. Veterans, mostly. Some still active duty, speaking anonymously. Some retired, willing to use their names. Some civilians who worked on classified projects. All of us sharing similar stories. All of us discovering we're not alone. One of the people I connected with was an Air Force radar operator from Nellis Air Force Base. She tracked a triangular craft in 2015 that performed maneuvers identical to what I witnessed. Hovered, instant acceleration, vertical ascent. She reported it up her chain of command. 2 weeks later, she was transferred to a different unit and told to never discuss the incident. Another contact was a Navy electronics technician who worked on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. He was part of the crew that tracked those famous UAP encounters off the East Coast in 2014 and 2015. The ones that eventually led to the Pentagon's acknowledgement of the phenomenon. He told me that crew members were told to delete recordings, to forget what they'd seen, that it was classified. But here's the thing, you can't unring that bell. Once you've seen these craft, once you've witnessed their capabilities, once you've understood that the official narrative is incomplete at best and deceptive at worst, you can't unknow it. For years, I tried to compartmentalize. I did my job, lived my life, tried to pretend that night at Langley was just an anomaly, a weird experience that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But it does matter. It matters that our military is encountering technology that far exceeds our capabilities. It matters that witnesses are being silenced and punished. It matters that the American people are being kept in the dark about a phenomenon that has significant implications for national security, scientific understanding, and perhaps our place in the universe. In 2025, Congress passed provisions in the National Defense Authorization Act requiring the Pentagon to brief lawmakers on UAP intercepts. That's progress. It's the kind of oversight that should have been happening for decades, but it's also frustratingly slow, frustratingly limited. Congressional access to information doesn't mean public access. Classified briefings don't lead to disclosure. The machinery of secrecy continues to function, just with slightly more oversight. That's why stories like mine matter. That's why witnesses need to come forward. Not through official channels, we've seen how that ends, but publicly, directly, bypassing the bureaucracy that's designed to filter and minimize. Let me be clear about something. I'm not advocating for the release of truly sensitive national security information. I'm not saying every black project needs to be disclosed. I'm not suggesting we compromise operational security, but the existence of these craft, the fact that they're operating in our airspace, the reality that they demonstrate capabilities beyond our technology, that's not information that harms national security by being public. In fact, I'd argue it harms national security more to keep it secret. When pilots don't report UAPs because they fear career repercussions, we lose crucial data. When sensor operators are told to ignore anomalous readings, we miss potential threats. When the stigma of discussing this topic is so strong that trained observers stay silent, we blind ourselves to a phenomenon that could be significant. Whether these craft are foreign adversaries with breakthrough technology, non-human intelligence, or something else entirely, the response shouldn't be silence. It should be transparent investigation, public acknowledgement, and serious scientific study. Instead, we get the AARO office producing reports that dismiss well-documented encounters. We get Pentagon officials testifying that they have no evidence of alien technology while simultaneously classifying every piece of data that might prove otherwise. We get a system designed to maintain the cover-up while giving the appearance of investigation. It's Kafkaesque, and it's wrong. After my encounter in 2012, I kept a journal. I know, violating my NDAs just by documenting it. But I needed to record the details while they were fresh. The exact shape of the craft, the pattern of the lights, that feeling of being scanned, the temperature drop. Every detail, because I knew that over time, memory fades, and I wanted a record of what really happened, not what my mind might later convince me happened. That journal has been hidden for 12 years, encrypted files locked away, insurance against anyone claiming I fabricated the story later. It has timestamps, metadata, details that can be verified against official records that I know exist somewhere in a classified database. I'm releasing excerpts from that journal alongside this statement. Not the full document. There are personal details that don't need to be public. But the technical observations, the timeline, the description of the craft and its capabilities. I expect some people will call me a liar, or delusional, or seeking attention. That's fine. I've had 12 years to prepare for that response, but I also expect that other witnesses will recognize the details I'm describing, because I'm not the only one who's seen these things. And to the current and former service members who've had similar encounters but haven't spoken up, I understand your hesitation. I understand the fear of retaliation, the concern for your career and your family. I carried that fear for over a decade. But the landscape is changing, congressional oversight is increasing, public awareness is growing. The old mechanisms of silencing witnesses are becoming less effective. More importantly, there's safety in numbers. The more of us who speak up, the harder it is to silence any of us. You don't have to use your real name. You don't have to provide details that could identify you. But your story matters. Your observations matter. Your expertise and credibility matter. The phenomenon I witnessed at Langley Air Force Base in March 2012 is real. The craft was real. The cover-up was real. The retaliation was real. And 12 years later, I'm done being silent about it. If this story resonates with you, if you've had your own experiences that you've been afraid to discuss, I want you to know you're not alone. This channel exists to share these stories, to honor the truth that service members carry, to break the silence that's been imposed on us for too long. Subscribe, share, and help us build a community where the truth can finally be told. Daily uploads bringing you the stories that need to be heard. The months following my decision to go public have been interesting, to say the least. I expected pushback from official channels. I expected lawyers from the Air Force to contact me about NDA violations. I expected something. Resistance. Retaliation. The machinery of the cover-up swinging into action. But you know what I got? Silence. Complete and total silence from official sources. No calls, no letters, no legal threats. Nothing. At first I thought maybe they just hadn't noticed. I'm a small fish after all. One veteran among thousands speaking about UAPs. Maybe my story got lost in the noise. But then I started hearing from other witnesses who'd gone public. Same thing. They'd braced for retaliation, prepared for legal consequences, expected some kind of official response. Instead, silence. And that silence is telling. It suggests to me that the old playbook, threaten, intimidate, silence, doesn't work anymore. Not in the current environment, not when congressional hearings are happening, when Pentagon videos have been declassified, when mainstream media is covering UAPs seriously. Attacking witnesses now would only validate what we're saying. It would draw attention to the very thing they want to keep quiet. So instead, they stay silent and hope the story fades. Hope public attention moves on to something else. Hope the slow grind of bureaucracy can outlast public interest. They might be right. Public attention is fickle. Today's shocking revelation is tomorrow's old news. The machinery of secrecy has survived for 70 years because it's patient. It can wait out a news cycle, a congressional session, a generation of witnesses. But here's what they're not accounting for. We're not giving up. The witnesses, the researchers, the journalists, the congressional representatives who actually care about this issue, we're not going away. Each hearing builds on the last. Each witness adds to the record. Each document that gets declassified adds another piece to the puzzle. The truth is emerging not in one dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small revelations. And eventually, the weight of evidence becomes undeniable. I think about Captain Morrison sometimes, the officer who debriefed me that morning after my encounter. I wonder if he believed in what he was doing, if he thought he was protecting national security, maintaining necessary secrets, or if he knew he was just maintaining a cover-up that served no real purpose except institutional self-preservation. I wonder if he's still active duty, still debriefing witnesses, still enforcing those enhanced NDAs, or if he's retired, carrying his own burden of knowledge about what's really happening in our skies. I wonder if he ever questions it. One of the things that struck me most about connecting with other witnesses is how similar our encounters are. Not just the physical characteristics of the craft, though those are remarkably consistent, but the emotional and psychological impact. Almost every witness describes the same sense of wrongness. Not fear exactly. More like a deep, instinctive understanding that you're witnessing something that shouldn't exist according to your framework of reality. Something that breaks the rules you thought governed the universe, and that feeling doesn't go away. Years later, decades later, witnesses still describe it with the same intensity. It stays with you, changes you, makes you question everything you thought you knew about technology, about physics, about what's possible. For me, the most profound impact wasn't the technological questions. It was the realization of how thoroughly we're deceived, not by some shadowy conspiracy, but by institutional structures that prioritize secrecy over truth, that protect bureaucratic interests over public knowledge. I served 8 years believing I was protecting American security. And I was, in many ways. The intelligence work I did mattered. But I also unwittingly served a system that was lying to the American people about something fundamental. That's a hard pill to swallow. Some people ask me, what do you think these craft are? Where do they come from? What do they want? Honest answer? I don't know. I can tell you what they're not. They're not conventional aircraft. They're not drones. They're not weather balloons or atmospheric phenomena or instrument errors. The idea that trained military observers, backed by multiple sensor systems, are consistently misidentifying mundane objects is insulting to our intelligence and our capabilities. Are they alien? Maybe. The technology is certainly beyond anything humans currently possess. The movement, the energy requirements, the materials, science implied by what I witnessed, we're not there yet, not even close. But alien is a loaded word. It implies so much: interstellar travel, non-human intelligence, contact. And while those implications might be true, I can't say for certain. What I can say is that these craft demonstrate technology that appears non-human in origin. Whether that means extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, or something else entirely, I don't have enough information to judge. What I do know is that the military has been encountering these things for decades. They've been tracking them, documenting them, studying them, and they've been lying about it. That's the part that bothers me most. Not the unknown origin of the craft, not the mystery of their purpose, but the deliberate deception by institutions I served and trusted. In the end, that's why I'm speaking out. Not because I have all the answers about UAPs, but because I refuse to be complicit in a lie that disrespects the American people's right to know what's happening in their own airspace. The craft I saw at Langley Air Force Base in March 2012 was real. The cover-up that followed was real. The retaliation against witnesses is real. And the American people deserve the truth. That's my story. That's what happened to me. And I'm willing to testify to it under oath, to subject myself to any investigation, to face whatever consequences come from breaking my silence. Because some truths are too important to keep secret. And this is one of them. There are so many stories from military service that never get told. Stories of courage, of sacrifice, of things witnessed and experienced that change a person forever. Some of these stories are classified. Some are just hard to tell. But all of them matter. All of them deserve to be heard. If you're a veteran, if you've served, you know what I'm talking about. There are things you carry that civilians can't fully understand. Not because they're not smart enough or caring enough, but because some experiences are so far outside normal life that they create their own reality. This channel exists to share those stories, to honor the truth of service in all its complexity. I'll be back tomorrow with another story, another truth, another veteran's voice. What story from your service do you carry with you? What truth have you never told? Think about it. And if you're ready to share, I'm here to listen. Until tomorrow, stay strong. The media attention following my public statement has been intense. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets, then international coverage. Former Air Force intelligence specialist breaks silence on UFO encounter became a headline I saw replicated across dozens of news sites. Some of the coverage has been fair. Journalists who took the time to verify my service record, to confirm my credentials, to understand the context of what I witnessed. Those stories presented my account accurately, noted the corroborating evidence from Dylan Borland and other witnesses, and asked reasonable questions about government transparency. Other coverage has been less helpful. sensationalized headlines, my photo next to obvious CGI images of flying saucers, commentary from UFO experts who weren't there and have no relevant experience, the usual circus that surrounds this topic. But I expected that. When you talk publicly about UAPs, you accept that you'll be packaged alongside every conspiracy theory and science fiction cliché. It's part of why serious witnesses hesitate to come forward. Nobody wants to be lumped in with the tinfoil hat crowd. What I didn't expect was the response from other veterans. In the 3 weeks since going public, I've been contacted by over 40 former military personnel who've had similar encounters. 40. Air Force, Navy, Army, Marines, officers, enlisted, civilians who worked on classified projects, all of them describing triangular craft. All of them describing impossible movements. All of them facing similar retaliation and classification. One contact came from a former F-22 pilot who encountered a triangular craft during a training mission out of Langley in 2015. 3 years after my sighting. Same base. Same type of craft. He reported it up his chain of command and was immediately grounded pending a psychological evaluation. They made me see a flight surgeon, he told me over an encrypted call. Did a full psych workup. Asked me if I was experiencing stress, if I had relationship problems, if I was sleeping enough. They were looking for a reason to declare me unfit for flight duty. I realized what was happening and changed my story. Said I'd been mistaken, that it was probably another aircraft, that the lighting conditions had confused me. They cleared me to fly again, but my promotion to major got delayed by 2 years. That was the punishment for reporting what I saw. Another contact was a radar technician who'd worked at Langley from 2008 to 2014. She described multiple instances of tracking triangular objects on radar, seeing them perform impossible maneuvers, and being told to delete the data. We had a standing order, she said. Any anomalous tracks that couldn't be immediately identified, we were supposed to log them as equipment malfunctions. Didn't matter if multiple systems were showing the same thing. Didn't matter if we had visual confirmation. The official explanation was always equipment error or weather phenomena. The pattern across all these accounts is chilling. The military isn't just encountering these craft. They're actively suppressing information about them. Witnesses are being silenced, intimidated, or discredited. Evidence is being deleted or classified. The entire institutional apparatus is geared toward denial. Why? I've thought about this constantly. What's the strategic benefit of hiding this information? What's being protected by the classification? One theory. It's adversary technology. China or Russia has developed aerospace capabilities that far exceed ours, and we don't want to admit we've been penetrated. But that theory doesn't hold up. If a foreign power had technology this advanced, they wouldn't just fly around military bases showing it off. They'd use it. And we'd be seeing it deployed in conflict zones, used for intelligence gathering, weaponized. Another theory. It's our own black projects. Experimental technology being tested without proper coordination with base security. But I worked in intelligence. I know how black projects operate. They don't test over active military bases where they'll be observed by hundreds of personnel with security clearances. They test in restricted ranges where they control all the sensors. The third theory is the one I keep coming back to. It's non-human technology. And the implications of acknowledging that are so profound, so potentially disruptive to our understanding of reality, that the institutional response is to deny, classify, and suppress. I'm not saying I believe it's aliens. I'm saying the evidence points to technology that exceeds current human capabilities, operated by intelligence that doesn't match known military or civilian actors. Whether that intelligence is extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, or something else entirely, I can't determine from what I observed. But the military's response, the immediate classification, the threats, the career destruction for witnesses, suggests they know more than they're saying. And whatever they know has them scared enough to maintain a 70-year cover-up. In late January 2026, just weeks after I went public, the James Fox press conference took place in Washington, D.C. I attended. So did Dylan Borland. So did dozens of other military and civilian witnesses. So did investigators, researchers, and congressional representatives who've been pushing for transparency. The evidence presented was overwhelming. Video footage, sensor data, witness testimony from credible observers, medical evidence from alleged encounter cases, documentation of cover-up efforts, and at the center of it all was a simple question. Why are we still being lied to? The press conference generated massive media coverage. Congressional members promised to pursue legislation requiring greater disclosure. The Pentagon issued a statement saying they take all UAP reports seriously and are committed to transparency. But I've heard those promises before. After the 2017 revelations, after the 2021 preliminary assessment, after every hearing and every investigation, the promises of transparency never quite materialize into actual disclosure. The system is designed to resist transparency. Classification authorities are broad and poorly defined. Oversight is limited by the very secrecy it's supposed to oversee. And the institutional culture prioritizes secrecy over accountability. Breaking that system requires more than congressional hearings. It requires witnesses willing to speak publicly despite the personal cost. It requires journalists willing to pursue the story despite ridicule. It requires citizens demanding answers from their elected representatives. My story, the triangular craft I witnessed at Langley Air Force Base in March 2012, is a tiny piece of a much larger puzzle. But every piece matters. Every witness who comes forward makes the cover-up harder to maintain. Every bit of evidence that reaches the public makes denial less tenable. I've paid a price for speaking out. My security clearance is under review. Some former colleagues won't speak to me. I've received threatening messages from people who think I should have kept quiet. My family has dealt with unwanted attention and harassment, but I'd make the same choice again. Because 12 years of silence didn't protect anyone. It didn't preserve national security. These craft are still operating in restricted airspace, regardless of whether we acknowledge them. It didn't advance scientific understanding. You can't study phenomena you pretend don't exist. And it didn't honor the oath I took to serve with integrity. The triangular craft hovering over Langley Air Force Base in 2012 was real. The technology it demonstrated was real. The cover-up that followed was real, and the American people deserve to know the truth. Whatever that truth ultimately reveals. I've started working with a group of researchers compiling a comprehensive database of triangular UAP sightings. The data is striking. Over 1,500 documented encounters worldwide, military and civilian witnesses, multiple sensor confirmations, consistent descriptions of the craft's appearance and capabilities. The sightings cluster around military installations, nuclear facilities, and advanced technology research centers. The craft demonstrate interest in our most sensitive and strategic locations. And the pattern has been consistent for at least 70 years. This isn't random. This isn't coincidental. Something is systematically monitoring our military capabilities, and we've been hiding that fact from the American people for 3/4 of a century. The cost of that secrecy is incalculable. How many scientific breakthroughs have we missed because we classified the evidence instead of studying it? How many threats have we failed to properly assess because we denied their existence? How many lives have been damaged by the suppression and retaliation against witnesses? My career was derailed by a 3-minute encounter with something I wasn't supposed to see. 12 years of carrying that secret. 12 years of watching the cover-up continue. 12 years of knowing the truth while the official story remained a lie. No more. To every service member who's seen these craft, you're not alone. Your observations are valid. Your service matters. And the classification system that silences you is wrong. To every citizen who demands transparency, keep demanding, keep asking questions, keep holding your elected representatives accountable. The cover-up only works if we accept it. To every researcher, journalist, and investigator pursuing this story, thank you. Your work matters. The truth matters. And eventually, despite all the institutional resistance, the truth will emerge. The craft I saw at Langley Air Force Base 12 years ago changed my life. Not because of what it was, though that remains the ultimate question, but because of what it revealed about the institutions I served and trusted. They lied. They continue to lie. And until enough of us stand up and demand better, they'll keep lying. That ends now.